Love makes people poetic. It also makes them profoundly stupid. We've all done something dumb in the name of romance. Texted an ex, written a bad poem, maybe even bought matching pajamas. But some people take it way further. 1. Somewhere in England, a man decided to win back his ex by staging a fake kidnapping. He roped in a friend, faked a ransom note, and waited for her to panic and come running back. Romantic, right? Except she called the police. SWAT teams, helicopters, the whole cinematic package, all to rescue a man from his own emotional immaturity. When they found him hiding in a shed with a Missing You playlist on loop, he reportedly said, "I thought it'd show her I cared." Yeah, nothing says lifelong partner like wasting taxpayer money and committing light terrorism for affection. Shakespeare would be proud if he'd written Romeo and Complete Idiot. 2. A woman in Florida tattooed her boyfriend's name across her forehead in 3-inch Gothic letters. Not her wrist, not her shoulder, her forehead. The guy broke up with her 2 weeks later, proving that while love is blind, regret has 20/20 vision. She claimed it was a symbol of eternal devotion, but honestly, it was more of a billboard for poor impulse control. Imagine applying for a job while explaining that Kevin isn't your name. It's your tragic life choice. The moral here? If your love story doubles as a cautionary tale in a laser removal clinic, it's probably not true love. It's just an unpaid advertisement for therapy. 3. A man once tried to propose underwater, without scuba gear. He dove into the ocean, holding a handwritten note in a plastic bag that said, "Will you marry me?" He never resurfaced. It's a tragic story, but also one that makes you question how people can afford engagement rings yet forget basic physics. Love may take your breath away, but this guy took that too literally. If you're planning to propose somewhere you need an oxygen tank, maybe start with dinner first. The ocean didn't take his life, his lack of logic did. 4. A teenager once carved his girlfriend's name into his arm with a kitchen knife, and then misspelled it. Imagine permanently branding your devotion and still getting an F for effort. When asked why he didn't double-check, he said, "It felt right in the moment." Buddy, so did the Titanic's maiden voyage. Nothing says everlasting love like spelling it wrong forever. 5. In an act of romantic protest, a guy chained himself to his ex's front door for 12 hours to prove he wasn't going anywhere. Spoiler, he went somewhere. Oh, straight to jail. Apparently, the police didn't see the poetry and trespassing and public crying. He told reporters he wanted her to see his dedication. She did. From behind her blinds, while drinking wine, probably Googling restraining orders. 6. One man in China spent his entire savings buying 99 new iPhones to propose with. He arranged them in a heart shape, got down on one knee, and presented the ultimate gesture of digital affection. She said no. So now he had 99 problems, and a phone was definitely one. Apple should have sponsored it as the most expensive rejection in history. There's no app for that kind of pain. 7. A woman once faked her own wedding to make her ex jealous. She hired a photographer, bought a gown, staged the ceremony, and posted everything online. It worked. He saw the photos and congratulated her. Then she admitted it was fake and somehow thought that would reignite the spark. It didn't. She basically held a one-person Broadway production called Desperation, the musical. 8. A man in Russia tried to win back his ex by staging his own death. He hired a friend to call her and report he'd been killed in a car crash. When she arrived sobbing at the scene, he jumped out of hiding with flowers. She didn't melt into his arms. She punched him in the face. Honestly, fair. If your grand romantic gesture involves emotional trauma and fake blood, you're not in love. You're auditioning for a true crime documentary. 9. A guy once got a tattoo of his girlfriend's face on his chest, but used her Snapchat filter photo as the reference. So now, permanently inked on his skin, is a cartoonish, doe-eyed version of his ex with sparkly dog ears. It's less romantic memento and more haunting artifact from the early 2010s. He said he didn't regret it because it represents how she made him feel. Yeah, filtered and not real. 10. In an act of ultimate devotion, one woman mailed herself to her boyfriend's house, literally shipped in a box. She thought it would be a surprise. The Postal Service thought it was a biohazard. When the delivery team heard movement inside, they called the cops. She climbed out smiling, covered in bubble wrap and regret, because nothing screams "I love you" like accidentally committing mail fraud. 11. A man in the UK legally changed his name to Baby, spelled that way, because that's what his girlfriend called him in texts. Unfortunately, the relationship ended 3 weeks later, leaving him permanently stuck as a linguistic crime. Imagine introducing yourself at a job interview with, "Hi, I'm Mr. Baby." It's less hopeless romantic and more sentient red flag. 12. One guy tried to prove his loyalty by getting his girlfriend's name branded into his skin with an actual hot iron. His explanation? Tattoos can fade. Yeah, so can sanity. He later said the smell of burning flesh was worth it. Honestly, if your relationship requires second-degree burns to prove commitment, it's not love. It's a medical emergency. 13. A woman once tried to impress her long-distance boyfriend by learning his native language, Icelandic. She did it entirely through Google Translate. When she finally sent him a romantic message, it apparently read, "Your fish is a very handsome table," which, to be fair, might still be one of the more poetic things ever said in Icelandic. 14. A man proposed by spelling out "marry me" in candles across his living room, and then accidentally set his apartment on fire. Firefighters arrived to find him outside, crying with the ring box still in hand. She said yes, possibly out of shock. It's the first proposal where "till death do us part" almost started early. 15. In South Korea, a man tried to win his ex back by hiring a marching band to perform outside her office. It worked. In that, he got her attention. It also got him arrested for disturbing the peace. She told reporters she found it deeply embarrassing. He said he wanted to make a statement. He did. The statement was, "Never date this man again." 16. A guy once stood outside his ex's window for 6 hours holding a boombox because he'd seen it in a movie. Unfortunately, this wasn't "say anything." This was in Ohio during winter, and his speaker died after 20 minutes. He stayed anyway, shivering and committed to the world's saddest silent concert. Love might warm the heart, but hypothermia wins every time. 17. Finally, there's the man who decided to get matching surgery with his girlfriend so they'd always look alike. He got a nose job to match hers. She dumped him before the stitches came out. Now he's walking around with a stranger's nose and a lifetime subscription to bad decisions. True love may fade, but plastic regret is forever. 18. One man in Canada tried to prove his devotion by getting his girlfriend's actual face 3D printed onto a pillow. Romantic in theory, terrifying in execution. The result looked less like love and more like a crime scene prop from Silence of the Lambs. He claimed it helped him feel close to her at night, which sounds sweet until you remember that she broke up with him 3 weeks prior. His neighbors called it deeply unsettling, which is Canadian for pure nightmare fuel. It's not love when your decor makes guests call a priest. It's taxidermy with extra steps. 19. A woman once tried to stop her boyfriend from leaving by supergluing herself to his car hood. She said she wanted to show commitment. He called the fire department. They spent 2 hours separating her from a 2008 Honda Civic while she yelled, "This means I care." Nothing says devotion like publicly fusing yourself to mid-tier Japanese engineering. The firefighters described her as emotionally charged and moderately adhesive. If you're using industrial glue to hold onto a relationship, it's not passion, it's physics. 20. In Italy, a man proposed to his girlfriend by hiding the engagement ring inside a glass of champagne. Classic move. Except she didn't notice it, she drank it, straight down. Emergency surgery, full recovery, and one sparkling diamond retrieved from her digestive tract. He called it, "A story we'll tell our grandchildren." Yeah, assuming they want to hear about how grandma's engagement was sponsored by her own internal organs. Love may conquer all, but apparently not common sense or proper ring placement. 21. A guy in Ohio faked becoming a priest so he could officiate his ex's wedding and sabotage it from the altar. He forged credentials, showed up in robes, and started preaching about the power of second chances. The groom called security, and the man was escorted out mid-sermon. When interviewed later, he said he wanted her to know he'd changed. Technically true, he'd changed from boyfriend to felon. 22. A woman in Argentina broke into her ex's house dressed as a clown, hoping to make him laugh again. Instead, she made him scream. She waited in the living room wearing full makeup, red nose, and holding balloons that said "Miss You." He walked in, saw Pennywise on his couch, and called the cops. She told officers, "I thought he'd find it funny." Yeah, Nothing rekindles romance like minor psychological trauma and a criminal record under the alias Bobo the Emotional Support Felon. 23. A man once spent an entire year building a scale replica of the Titanic just to ask his girlfriend to marry him on it. He said it symbolized their love story, which, didn't exactly end well for the original ship. She said yes, but only after saying, "This better not sink." The symbolic part came true. 6 months later, they broke up. Turns out building your relationship on a disaster metaphor isn't the best foundation. 24. A woman tried to show her boyfriend she could handle danger like him, so she agreed to join him in a couple's skydiving jump, despite her fear of heights. Mid-flight, she changed her mind and refused to jump. He went anyway. She broke up with him while he was still in the air. He landed to a text that read, "I can't do this anymore." If that's not emotional turbulence, I don't know what is. 25. A man once legally adopted his girlfriend's son to prove he was serious. Sweet gesture, except he didn't tell her. She found out from the courthouse. He said it was a romantic surprise, like adopting a human being without permission was the adult version of sending flowers. The court called it fraud. He called it love. One of those is a felony. 26. In Japan, a man married a hologram. Yes, a literal digital projection. He said no human could match her loyalty, which is fair because she can't physically leave him. They even had a wedding ceremony. Guests, vows, a $17,000 fee. He now advocates for cross-reality relationships. Nothing wrong with finding love where you can, but if your partner's biggest turn-on is a software update, maybe it's time to touch grass. 27. A woman once broke into a zoo after hours to retrieve a rock her boyfriend had thrown into a lion enclosure. As a symbol of their love, she wanted to get it back for closure. The lions disagreed. Security found her clinging to a fence, while one lion looked at her like she was a poorly wrapped snack. The rock remained. Her relationship didn't. Love might make you brave, but stupidity makes you news. 28. A man spent 6 months learning parkour so he could dramatically leap onto his girlfriend's balcony to surprise her. He nailed the first jump, missed the second, and went straight through her neighbor's glass table. He spent their anniversary in the ER explaining to doctors that it was for love. Gravity doesn't care about your feelings. It's the one relationship that always stays grounded. 29. A woman in Brazil got her boyfriend's face tattooed across her entire back, then tried to pass it off as an abstract design after they broke up. Spoiler, it wasn't. It was a full, hyper-realistic portrait that now looks like a ghost haunting her shoulder blades. She told reporters, "I might turn it into Jesus. Honestly, it's the most believable resurrection story I've ever heard." 30. In Las Vegas, a man proposed during a magic show by pretending to accidentally saw himself in half. His girlfriend screamed, fainted, and when she woke up, said no. Apparently, watching your partner fake his own dismemberment doesn't inspire commitment. He said he wanted it to be unforgettable. Mission accomplished. She's still talking about it in therapy. 31. A guy tried to impress his girlfriend by writing her name in fireworks on the beach. Unfortunately, he didn't know how fireworks work. The letters exploded sideways, setting fire to a lifeguard station and several very confused seagulls. He was fined $2,000, but at least the city got a free light show spelling out R and panic. Love burns bright, just usually not under arson laws. 32. A woman in Australia got arrested after sneaking into her ex's house to leave a romantic surprise. She filled his bedroom with live ducks, 47 of them. She thought it would be funny and sweet. The ex described it as the worst smell of my life. She called it art. The police called it trespassing. Somewhere between cute gesture and biohazard, the romance died. 33. A man once rented a helicopter to propose mid-air over a field that said, "Marry me," in giant letters. Unfortunately, it was the wrong field. The woman on the ground wasn't his girlfriend, just a random farmer's wife having lunch. His actual girlfriend was 5 miles away, wondering why he was circling someone else's property. He spent 10 grand to propose to a stranger. Congratulations, I guess, to both confusion and aeronautical regret. 34. A woman in Texas tried to show eternal love by baking her boyfriend's name into a loaf of bread, using iron-on transfer paper meant for t-shirts. The result was a toxic, smoking loaf that set off every fire alarm in the house. When firefighters asked what she was doing, she tearfully said, "I just wanted to make love rise." Instead, she made carbon monoxide. If love is the secret ingredient, stupidity was definitely the flower. 35. A guy in Los Angeles tried to prove his girlfriend was his whole world by tattooing a map of her hometown across his chest. Full city grid, street names, everything. Unfortunately, he spelled 3 of them wrong, and somehow included a Taco Bell that didn't exist. She broke up with him a month later, leaving him forever branded as a man who literally lost his way in love. Now, every time he takes off his shirt, it looks like Google Maps crashed mid-download. He says he keeps it as a reminder of love. Yeah, and your body keeps scars as a reminder of gravity. Same energy. 36. A woman once broke into a theme park at night to scatter her ex's ashes on the roller coaster where they'd had their first date. Romantic in theory, except he wasn't dead. He was very much alive, just living in another state and probably questioning every life choice that led him there. She said it was symbolic closure. The park called it trespassing with mysterious powder. The police called it probably illegal. If you're spreading fake ashes on a ride called the Cyclone of Doom, maybe the relationship was already cremated. 37. In a bizarre show of loyalty, one man got a tattoo of his girlfriend's eye on his lower back so she could always watch over him. It's as horrifying as it sounds, a hyper-realistic staring eyeball right above the waistband. When they broke up, he claimed he couldn't date again because she's always there. Yeah, watching, forever. If love had a horror movie, this would be the poster. Imagine explaining that to a new partner. "Don't worry, that's just my ex. She's keeping an eye on us." 38. A woman in Spain chained herself to her boyfriend's Xbox to make him choose between her and the console. He chose the console. Firefighters had to cut her loose while she screamed about loyalty. The boyfriend reportedly just kept playing. She said, "He doesn't value commitment." He said, "It's the playoffs." And honestly, at that point, I think we all value different things. 39. A man in Russia built a robot that looked like his ex and named it after her. He said it helped him process his feelings. It did everything except feel mutual regret. The robot could speak, cook, and play songs, all his ex's favorite ones, which, to be clear, means he literally programmed emotional pain into a machine. That's not therapy. That's a science fiction cry for help. When asked if he'd ever move on, he said, "Not unless I can upgrade her software." This is how dystopias start, not with AI overlords, but with guys who can't let go. 40. A guy once faked a shark attack to impress a girl. He showed up at her workplace covered in fake blood, claiming he'd fought off a great white. Unfortunately, he used ketchup. The smell gave him away before the lie did. She dumped him on the spot, and he told reporters he was heartbroken but proud. Proud of what, exactly? Your bravery against condiments? Somewhere out there, a real shark is watching this story like, "Don't drag us into your nonsense." 41. A woman in South Korea tried to prove her devotion by getting plastic surgery to look more like her boyfriend's favorite anime character. It worked. If worked means she now looks like someone who fell face first into Photoshop. He broke up with her saying, "It's too weird to date my fantasy," which is rich, considering it was his fantasy that got her into this mess. She told reporters, "I did it out of love." He said, "I'm flattered, but also terrified." It's the first time someone's ever been dumped for achieving exactly what the other person wanted. 42. A man once crashed his car into a tree on purpose to test if his girlfriend would care. She didn't, mostly because she thought he was at work. When police arrived, he told them it was for love. They told him it was for an ambulance. That's the thing about romantic gestures. They stop being cute once airbags are involved. 43. A woman mailed her boyfriend 365 handwritten letters, one for every day of the year. Beautiful, right? Except she sent them all at once, in one giant box. He opened it, saw a wall of envelopes, and said it felt like getting ambushed by stationery. She said it was a year of love in one package. He said it was a fire hazard. If your romance can double as insulation, it's time to rethink the delivery method. 44. A guy in New York proposed using a flash mob in Times Square, complete with dancers, confetti cannons, and a marching band. Very public, very dramatic, very She said no, in front of hundreds of people, live streamed on Instagram. You could hear the emotional deflation over the trumpets. He said he wanted a moment to remember. Oh, he got one. Every time he hears a marching band, his soul probably leaves his body. 45. A man in India hired 12 skywriters to spell out "I love you" across the sky for his girlfriend. Unfortunately, they flew in the wrong order and wrote "You love I." He called it an honest mistake. She called it a sign. The internet called it grammatically tragic. Nothing says forever like a $20,000 typo hovering over a confused city. 46. In Canada, a guy bought his girlfriend a pet llama as a symbol of loyalty. Cute idea, until the llama spit in her face during their anniversary photo. She screamed, he laughed, the llama screamed back. It was like The Notebook if it had been directed by Animal Planet. She dumped him, he kept the llama, and they now have joint custody of trauma. 47. A woman once baked her boyfriend a cake shaped like his face. It was disturbingly accurate, down to the pores and teeth. He said eating it felt like cannibalism, but with frosting. She said, "It's symbolic of devotion." No, it's symbolic of serial killer energy with buttercream icing. I don't care how romantic you are. No relationship should involve cutting into your partner's head with a dessert knife. 48. A man in Scotland built a 20-foot ice sculpture of his girlfriend to impress her during winter. It melted 2 days later. She called it a sign our love was fleeting. He called it a physics problem. Somewhere, Mother Nature just whispered, "Stay humble." Because nothing humbles you like watching your $4,000 monument to romance literally evaporate before your eyes. 49. A couple decided to get matching heart tattoos with their fingerprints inside the design. Cute, right? Except they accidentally mixed up whose print was whose, so now he's walking around with her heart and her fingerprint on his ex, and she's got his. They called it a meaningful mistake. I call it biometrically cursed. It's like Cupid went into witness protection. 50. A man in Florida tried to propose mid-skydive with a ring in his hand. You can probably guess where this is going. The ring fell out mid-air. It's still somewhere in a field, probably being worshipped by raccoons. When they landed, he said, "It's the thought that counts." She said, "Not when the thought costs 3 months' salary." Gravity wins again, proving it's the only consistent partner in this whole list. 51. And finally, the dumbest act of love I've ever heard. A man in France tattooed his own marriage proposal across his chest, complete with yes and no checkboxes for her to tick. She grabbed the pen, checked no, and left. He walked around for months with a permanent rejection form stamped on his ribcage. He told reporters, "I don't regret it. It's a lesson in love." Yeah, the lesson being, never make your body a multiple-choice question. Because when it comes to love, people will always find a way to choose none of the above. Drop your vote in the comments, share your own romantic disasters, and hit subscribe. Because clearly, this species isn't done embarrassing itself yet.